We'd like to call the June 18th, 2018 school board meeting to order at this time, and Mr. Rick is going to give us our opening prayer. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. Lord, we pray that you would bless this time together, be with us as we discuss the business of the school district. Lord, we pray that everything that we would say and do during this meeting would be done in accordance with your will for the betterment of the children of this community. Lord, be with us as we leave. Grant those who are traveling mercies until we meet again. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to turn some time over to Dr. Pickles for some recognitions and introductions.
First, I'd like to recognize Ms. Lori Newman, if she would come up for her appreciation for your outstanding effort in carrying out the 2018 Florida Youth Survey Administration, and in addition to your usual duties. So, kind of going above, they sent a recognition, so send a certificate to you for appreciation. Mr. Rick wants pictures. So, kind of going above and beyond the extra call for that survey. So we do appreciate you helping with the survey.
Always need to. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
On behalf of our district. And then I would like to introduce, kind of not officially on duty yet, but Miss Kim Dixon is here. She has now moved to our community. Now she will officially start next week, but Miss Dixon, if you'd like to come up. So she did come to training today, so she was actually working today. She came to a couple presentations and then sat through Red Cross training today. So, but Miss Dixon is from North Carolina. Y'all Skyped with her, but now she's officially here and she's living in Lee. Out by the peanut factory. So she's way out there. So
That's the kind of directions that we need.
But this is our board attorney, Mr. Reeves.
Very nice to meet you.
And then our chair right now.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Miss Williamson, and then Miss Gibson, Miss Daniels.
Nice to meet you.
Miss Hagan, and Mr. Alford.
Hello.
Welcome.
So, but now y'all can actually meet her in person.
Okay.
But I'm excited about starting. I think officially my first day is the 25th.
25th.
But I've already been involved in some webinars when I was in Mississippi with my mom.
Yeah, we kept her busy with some CTE.
And then today in training, so looking forward to officially joining the team. So appreciate the opportunity.
She's ready to get work, and after tomorrow I will share with her all the actual grade results, and we'll talk more about that later. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is amendments to the agenda, and there are none. And moving on to comments from the public. Are there no one signed up for comments from the public? Moving on to the consent agenda.
Wait a minute.
Oh, is there?
Did you get the sheet, Madam Chairman?
Miss Becky said there wasn't.
Why don't you just ask if anybody wants to?
Becky, can you?
I don't think they haven't signed it.
It doesn't matter, it doesn't start until the meeting just begun.
Okay, I'm sorry. Miss Becky must have looked before you signed up. I apologize. Is that Roberson? Mr. and Miss Roberson? what's your name? Ms. Hill.
I'd
Okay.
rather she sign her own name, Madam Chair.
Okay.
My name is Tammy Roberson. This is my husband, Desmond Roberson. I'm a little nervous right now. I'm here today because it was an incident that happened at the school with my son, Desmond Roberson Jr. He's in 8th grade now. He's actually taking the credit classes to be able to pass the summer program. He started last Monday, and he's been having some problems since then. On Tuesday, I got a call from Miss Pride saying that he was off task. My son is ADHD. He has a IEP, and when I talked to her, I said, well, I would talk to him and get things squared away. So that following Tuesday afternoon, my nephew and my, which is Marquez Jones, and my son was at the house, and I asked they just brought it up randomly, and he was like, Auntie, Miss Shanika Pride be nitpicking with Desmond. Like, she told him that he was going to flunk, he might well stay home, because wasn't no need for him to come to summer school because of him the F on his report card. So I texted her that night, and I let her know, because we had a relationship like that, and I texted her and let her know what was going on, what was said. She called me that night, and she told me that wasn't the case. Desmond got in trouble for horse playing in the cafeteria. I said, I understand that, but you did not call me and tell me that. I said, I'm stating what happened, what was said about my son, educational wise. And so my son went to school the next day, and I get a phone call saying that, hey, you need to come pick him up. And I asked question why. Oh, he's on inappropriate site. Now, mind you, the teacher did give them permission to get on YouTube to listen to music while doing the assignments. But my son was on YouTube and got caught on YouTube with the permission of the teacher. And I was told to come pick him up for being on inappropriate site. At that time, I went to the school. I was very, very upset. I asked for Ms. Hill. They said Ms. Hill wasn't there. I spoke with Ms. Paula, and I spoke with the other lady. I can't think of her name. But they told me he can't come back until I speak with Ms. Hill. So I left the school with my son. I came back to the school to find Ms. Hill, because she told me that she would return after hours. So I went back, and I went back to Ms. Paula's office, and she told me that my Ms. Hill, I asked her, I said, was Ms. Hill here yet? She told me no, she's not here, she's gone for the day. I happened to walk around the corner, and I heard somebody speaking, and Ms. Hill, Ms. Beth Moore, Ms. Yolanda, and Ms. Jada was in that room. So I was lied to about Ms. Hill not being there. So I pulled Ms. Hill out, and I talked to Ms. Hill, and I told Ms. Hill, I said, I know what happened with my son was probably against the rule, but he had permission. I said, and she told me, well, I the one that told them to call you to come pick him up, because we not out here to be playing around, and we don't have to do this. We don't have to have him to come out here to take these classes to get his credit. We don't have to do this. And I told her, I said, well, he has an IEP. I said, y'all supposed to go by his IEP. I understand what he did, but for them to just say whatever to him, it hurted me. And because he already have low self-esteem as it is, and for a teacher to say whatever to my son, it bothers me. So I talked with Ms. Hill, and she told me, she didn't even know that he had an IEP. And I'm trying to figure out, well, if you allow a child to come and take a summer course, you're supposed to already know about that child before you have that child to come out there. So you know what he need, what his qualification. If he needed a teacher to do one-on-one with him, they should already know this. So I talked with her, but she said, well, if you need, I said, he needs somebody to read to him, like if he don't understand something. She said, well, if you need that, you might as well take him out, because that's not what we do. And I was hurt. I was hurt about all that. So I left with my son, and I started calling, making some phone calls to try to get to the bottom of the situation. Then my son later on told me that, Mom, Miss Shanika Pride was very upset with you calling her, so she addressed us in the classroom in front of everybody, stating that, let me fix these lies that y'all went home and told your mom. And I was very hurt about that. You don't address my son. I'm very hurt.
I'm sorry. Did the situation get resolved? Is he back in school?
No, ma'am, he's not back in school. He's home.
Madam Chair, let me suggest this. This is up on the public input. We need to pull this from on the public input and put it on the agenda, because we need to address this today. The child has an IEP. He has other issues, ADD and whatever.
ADHD.
And he has all these issues. So we need to address this today. That child has been out of school too long. So, Madam Chair, may I add this to the agenda for an agenda item consideration, because we need to get something resolved today with this.
If I may, Ms. Roberson, you went to the school this morning.
I did go to the school this morning with
my
my son.
understanding, because I was going to call you when I found out all the details, but I had a meeting, I had a presentation, and by the time they came, I was informed that you chose not to leave your child today, but you would be bringing him back tomorrow. That was what I was informed.
They didn't approve him to come back today, because I was told by the lady back there, I don't know her name, she told me that the board didn't have no business telling me to bring my son back today, because the investigation wasn't even completed.
Let me clarify that. I've been in contact with Ms. Roberson the whole weekend several times. I've spoken with her, and when I spoke with her on Saturday, I had stated to Ms. Roberson I did not have an issue with it, but Dr. Pickles would be the final say. I text Dr. Pickles your number and information, and I was under the understanding that she was going to get back to you before today. And again, I'm sorry for that. But again, something at this point needs to be done where the student can go back to school and we can see that his needs can be met.
Okay. Could we just talk after the meeting, because it was my understanding you said and took your child home.
No, ma'am.
And I don't want, we're on live, and I don't want to get into your personal details, but therefore I did not go into and calling you because for the reasons that you were not leaving your child today, so I was told everything was fine and your child will be coming tomorrow.
No, ma'am, that's not what was told to me this morning. I brought my son, like Mr. Bart told me to bring him back to school. And when I got to the school, I heard them in the office talking about, what is he doing back out here? They didn't know that I heard them, but I heard them say that. And when I walked in there, that's when they was like, the board didn't have no business telling me to bring my son back when they haven't even finished the investigation. I'm trying to figure out what they got to investigate.
Did you choose on your own, the answer is yes or no, to take your child back home today?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
So now, if he comes to school tomorrow, that is worked out and he can stay at school or not?
Yes.
But let me ask you something. Have you had any written correspondence from anybody or anything like this?
No, ma'am. Haven't got any. Just word of mouth. Nothing. No black and white.
Issues.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it an option?
Because I know I called the superintendent on Thursday morning. I called the superintendent and made the superintendent aware of what was going on. And, you know, if you choose to stand up here and talk about your child in public, well, that's fine. That's you. You've given permission.
Yes, ma'am.
However, we try to hide anything, any discussion that goes on behind it. I'm not willing to hide any discussion that goes on behind it.
Well, my question is, did they know it was an option this morning to leave the child or not? I mean, they didn't. Okay.
They didn't tell you it was
'Cause I'm
optional that you could leave the child?
No, ma'am. I just told you just what they told.
Again, I don't know that we're going to hash this out right now. Is there any way, Ms. Reeves, again, as a board member, I want the child to be able to go to school, and he has an active IEP. We need to try to meet those IEP accommodations. And what do we need to do to move forward? Do they need to hold an IEP meeting tomorrow?
I think issue one has always got to be the interest of the child. And so issue one is this child allowed to come back to school tomorrow?
That's
and
exactly.
I think Ms. Hill's nodding her head, so the child is allowed to come back to school
Okay,
tomorrow.
so we need that said by the superintendent, that the child is allowed to
And
come
I just
back
said
to
he
school.
was, but
Okay, so that
I
has been
was
said
told
by the
there was another
superintendent, the child is
reason.
allowed to come back tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, all these other discussions that you need to have with your personnel,
Right.
you really need to
no,
have.
I wanted to have a discussion with her. So if we could
But
take, do
you
you
need
mind
to
us
have a
taking a
discussion with
5-minute
your personnel
recess?
too, ma'am.
Do you
No,
mind
I
if we
do not.
taking my 5-minute
I
recess
just-
so I could talk to Ms. Roberson?
The main thing that I want is for it, whatever to be resolved so that this child can go to school.
And we know tonight.
If I could take a 5-minute recess and just question her, that's all I need to do. I'm not gonna do it on the record.
Are you willing to meet with with Dr. Pickles for 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, well, we will adjourn for 5 minutes then. We're gonna call our meeting back to order.
And we need to know what has been resolved
Yes, it's been resolved.
to how, and we have a paragraph or something of how it has been resolved.
Desmond will be in class tomorrow, which
Thank
is
you.
what I
Thank
was
you.
told.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, moving on to the consent agenda.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Madam Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Pickles, can we please make sure that all ESC students who are in summer school, that their instructors are aware of that they're ESC and that they have accommodations, please?
That's why we have a directive that ESE.
Please, if we can
And
make
that
sure.
directive ESE should have been called in from the very first complaint, because she's the expert on these things. Had that person been called in, maybe it wouldn't have been as many problems as there are now.
If we could just make sure that all teachers are aware of who's ESC and who receives accommodations, so we can alleviate this in the future.
I had an opportunity to talk to Tammy at length. As a matter of fact, she's explained what the situation. When I'm a little concerned about some of the things she said. I'm not sure if this is the time or the place to bring it up, about what actually went on in the class. I don't know if we want to get into it or not.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll put it, okay.
We're moving to the consent agenda. Are there any questions on any item that's on the consent agenda?
Did we get everybody who wanted to speak? The other lady that put her name under as consent agenda, did she
Oh.
speak?
Ms. Hill, is she still here? Is that her behind you?
No.
She's good.
Oh, she left. Yeah, I thought she left. That's okay. If there be no questions or comments about anything on the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve them?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Ms. Gibson, seconded by Mr. Daniels to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? 5-0, Ms. Becky. Okay, item 1 on items for individual consideration, staff trips. Dr. Pickles?
There are none. We
Okay.
put them all under our categorical or grant funds.
Okay, student field trips out of county?
We have several. We have actually 4. The high school and then our migrant students. So I ask for approval. And they're listed there for you. It's actually the high school Fellowship of Christian Athletes going to Mariana, and then 3 of the migrant trips.
Okay. Are there any questions about the out-of-district field trips?
You know, I think I have a statement to make about that. When I first was elected, I asked to have, when someone goes someplace, to have some feedback, and we've gotten some feedback, but I think it is also, like for instance, on this trip going to, with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I'd like to hear from Coach Coe about what happened, and, you know, I mean, the school board's sending them. We'd like to hear what transpired, if possible.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the student out-of-county trips.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Alford. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hagan. All those in favor? 5-0, Dr. Pickles. For Ms. Becky. Okay. NFCC and MCCB welding program agreement.
Finally, after many, many years, I'm trying to get a welding program started and established at the high school. This is our next step in moving forward with having a welding program for our high school secondary students and then our community.
I heard there's a lot of interest.
We have 41 students at the high school signed up, which is a good problem to have. We're not quite sure how we're going to accommodate that many students, so we're going to have a waiting list. But the way the agreement is written, the easiest way that we finally came to terms, it's easier for the college to hire the instructor and have the instructor. Originally, the original agreement showed 5 nights a week for welding, but then they said no, only 4 nights a week.
Probably not Friday.
So the
not
question
Fridays.
that I have to ask, will the James Madison High School students be able to participate in
They
this
have
program?
6 that are interested.
6 slots, okay.
So we're trying to actually, I have a meeting with them next week with the college to try to figure out our allotments, because we do not have that many welding stations. We only have 8 welding stations, and we were only going to offer for 2 periods. So we're trying to figure out now how to accommodate this many students. But the college will offer and use our facility at night, and then we will offer it during the afternoons to our students. So
Now,
we will do this as a cost share.
if for some reason the college didn't have a full thing, could some of our kids do it at night or not?
We could put them in dual enrollment. That's one of the things we've talked about.
Okay.
If they don't fill up their slots, we'll push ours in the evening for dual enrollment.
Okay.
Then we just have to pay dual enrollment cost.
Well, all right.
So
Is
I
there-
do recommend approval.
Are there any questions concerning? If there's no questions, is there a motion to approve?
I make the motion to approve the contract with North Florida Community College and the Madison County School Board concerning the welding program.
Is there- Second. All those in favor? 5-0, Ms. Becky. Okay, lease agreement with Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, purchase and lease of 8 buses.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, you have the lease documents on the 8 buses that I know we had discussed in a prior workshop on May 4th, I believe, and I think we had discussed it prior to that. It's, you know, the terms are the same as we had discussed May 4th, and I do have a copy of the PowerPoint that summarizes the key points of the agreement, if anybody wants another copy of that. This is a contract that's through it's purchased under state contract. Delivery date projected for July. The buses were ready, but they need to equip them with the GPS and camera systems. So I've been assured that if we go ahead and consummate the agreement, we can have the buses in-house definitely before school starts.
Good.
Good.
And again, we've done the 5-year lease at a very favorable interest rate that gives us the ability to stretch this thing out if needed, but there's no penalty if we do come up with funds in any of the subsequent years. We can prepay this, so it gives us an option that we wouldn't have if we just came in here and struck the check. And so I will be glad to answer any of the specifics if if needed.
That sounds real good. Are we still pursuing the grant? Is it with Volkswagen that would get us a couple extra buses?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Williams. It's everything's in process in the pipeline, and that was done with the application before I got here. But we have confirmed, and our insurance consortiums help stay on top of it. And it's just one of those things, kind of like
Wait and see.
Kind of like the FEMA rebates on the IRMA money. I just don't know when it would happen. But again, we have not budgeted any of that money, so if it came, it would be it'd be a good surprise.
Okay, good.
And Madam Chair, if I may, you know, with a purchase this size, ordinarily you'd have to go out for bids and all that kind of stuff. But this is being purchased off the state contract. It's my understanding from Mr. Copeland. The state contract, and y'all may be aware of this, is where the state has negotiated purchase prices and lease options and all that for all those different commodities. And so you're always allowed to purchase off those negotiated by the state contracts. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why there's no competitive process.
Right, and we usually get a better deal through the state because they do such a mass number.
Such a massive.
Yes, ma'am, and we did our due diligence to make sure we were getting a fair deal on the best buses out there and dealing with a reputable group. And I, in my history, have dealt with Mercedes-Benz Financial quite a bit, and so I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, good, very good. Are there any other questions or concerns for Mr. Copeland about this? Is there a motion to approve the?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the lease agreement with Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA LLC on lease purchase of 8 school buses.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Okay, talk for a second. Motion made by Ms. Hagan and seconded by Ms. Gibson. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay. Mr. Copeland, contract payroll services of Chipley.
This entity is a single-member LLC. It's a lady, Ms. Joanne Goings, and she retired from the Washington County School District after 20-plus years of payroll experience. She's been assisting us, and after we made some moves in payroll, we had to move immediately, and we identified Ms. Goings, and she's worked well with us. Now, our plan is, of course, to fill the job full-time as quickly as we can get the job filled.
Okay, that was my next question.
And I've talked with, you know, my LaTanya Denson, who's our assistant finance officer, and my staff and other folks. Right now, unfortunately, we don't have Skyward fully implemented on the payroll and employee management side. None of the 14 districts that are under the PACE implementation do. It would be a big hurdle if we brought somebody in right now and tried to get them up to speed while we're trying to get this fixed. And Ms. Goins has, I'm comfortable with it, and again, this is not what we're looking at as a long-term plan. And even though it's a contract for a year, either side can cancel at 30 days notice. But we don't need to jump ships now with all the synergy we have and the help that she's had.
So this is my next question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I had concerns after reading this. Okay, so we do have that vacancy. That vacancy has been here for a long time. Now, we have staff back there. They're picking up the extra duties. Are these people being compensated? Here's the thing. There's a whole job that we're saving money on, and we're asking our staff, these are some of the lowest paid people, to pick up the extra duties. And of course, they were willing, all of them were willing. Now, it's time now that those duties be put aside, somebody be hired, or those duties be taken from them. In all fairness to these low-wage earners, because when we get to administrators, we tweak and we do everything to the contracts until we get who we want, and then we do this and do that, and we hire these people, and then they get extra money, and we've got to think about our low-wage people too. Too much burden has been put on them financially and stressful. That's what Vieta Hagan is saying, as I see it, my opinion.
And in my opinion, I've read over it thoroughly, and it's a temporary, I think she's basically there for training purposes. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. In other words, she has the knowledge. We need someone with the knowledge, not someone from off the street that doesn't know what they're doing and get us all fouled up. So I think that's what I look at. It's a temporary position, basically for training purposes. Am I right?
For implementation, training purposes, and to tell you the truth, we don't have time to stop and to get us by right now. And Ms. Hagan, can I just address real quick?
Sure.
Ms. Denson and I, she's helped a lot running interference between Joanne and maybe communicating with employees that have questions, and I've done quite a bit of it myself. And in her job description, when we adjusted it some before it was approved, running interference and being a payroll overseer is in that job description, and I'm very pleased with her performance.
But let me clear this up. This is not only about Mrs. Denson. This is about everybody who's working back there. I didn't specialize Ms. Denson or anything like that. It's concerning everybody, because when I posed the question to the superintendent when we were going to fill this position, and she said that each employee were doing different things, and it's concerning every employee, not only, Mrs. Denson. And as I said, we are saving money, and that is in her job description to oversee payroll, but it's not her job description since she brought it up to do payroll.
Well,
and so this person will be doing payroll.
Oh, they have. Yes, ma'am. They're doing all the nuts and bolts.
Okay, yeah. So that's cleared up then.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And so, but I think we're on the same page.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, and but it's.
So I'll offer the motion to accept this contract.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those approve? 5-0, Ms. Becky. Okay.
Thank you.
Approval of tentative trim calendar, Mr. Copeland.
Yeah, I've had, I think there's 2 memos out there that y'all had received, and the first one, it's a 2-page memo, and the first page is mainly just reference items to help myself keep up with the required timeline and just as for reference for y'all. Page 2, it's the proposed dates where we need the board input related to the trim schedule. And if you see, we tried to do it the best we could with no special meetings, but it's just going to be almost impossible this year to do that. We had proposed a July 9, 2018 special meeting as a budget workshop where we could provide our tentative budget and answer questions and go over it before we approve it for advertising. And am I right that that's just going to replace another board meeting, or that is a special meeting? Okay. But, and then the other dates, the July 16th approval of tentative budget is a regularly scheduled meeting. July 25th of 18, that's just a reference point that when we need to advertise. There's nothing that the board will need to do there. And then July 30th, we're proposing a special meeting, which would be the public hearing to adopt the tentative budget. And same thing with September 17th. I know that's a long ways out, but we have to coordinate this with the clerk of court's office so we don't have too many conflicts with other county agencies when we're doing this. And we can always zig and zag, but this is what we had proposed, Dr. Pickles, when we sat down.
Is the time for these meetings all at 6 o'clock?
Pardon me?
You want to set the time for these meetings for 6 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what's been in the past.
So that's the 9th and the 30th.
Are there any questions or concerns about the times for the trim calendar?
I make the motion for the approval of the tentative trim calendar.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Alford, seconded by Ms. Hagan. All those in favor? 5-0, Ms. Becky. Okay. Screen School Volunteers, Mr. Stallnaker.
Madam Chairman, there are none.
Okay. Staffing allocation plan changes, Mr. Stallnaker.
Madam Chairman, in your packet, back in March, I believe it was, we approved the staffing allocation plan that we've been using to work on March of 17, that we've been using to work on for this school year. We have looked at the need of the schools and needs of the district, and as we all agree, we know there's a tremendous need to reduce the discipline at the central school. Currently, we have one MTSS dean of students, and not only will that dean of students handle discipline, they also handle responses to intervention. And by the time the students get to middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, we're having more of a challenge to fix some of those issues. So our proposal is to add a second dean of students, for one primarily for students in grades K to 2, and the second one, which we already have, in grades K to 3 to 5. And the enrollment numbers would dictate that. Enrollment up to 500 students, we'd have one. Up to 1,000 students, we'd have 2 dean of students. Any questions on that section before I continue?
Yes, sir. So we have one dean of the students.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're asking for one more.
Correct.
Okay. And the first dean, I didn't get it wrote well. K to 2nd?
K to 2, yes, ma'am. That's how we'll break them down.
Okay. And 3 to 5?
Yes, ma'am.
And 6 to 8?
We won't have one. We'll use the APs and
Okay,
follow up
APs.
with
That's
yes.
where okay.
Yes.
That's my, All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Now, I think it's a really good thing to have it because Mr. Daniels and myself attended a workshop in Tampa that I hope that our district will look at, that will cut down on a lot of referrals and get to the thing of why a child did it, not what they did. And it goes through like the dean process to be referred to counseling or whatever. And I think it would be a good thing.
I attended that workshop last year, and I have all the paperwork on it. And maybe they have some of their paperwork too. But I did save my paperwork from last year.
It's called root cause analysis. Trying to find out what root cause is.
So I think that it would be good to have that extra person and to try this program to cut down on some of these referrals and get to the root of the problem to try to help the kids.
And there's a film, Just Listen.
It is?
That film that we saw, Just Listen. We need to get that and get those people here to show that film to all our staff that, you know, with the intervention.
Can you give me the name and?
The lady gave Mr. Daniels in our workshop, he got a card, and they will come free of charge to do the training and that kind of thing.
That'll do it.
When y'all give me the card, we'll work on it.
Okay, they'll do it.
All right, the second thing we'd like to do, we're proposing, is removing the assistant principals of curriculum designation and changing that. And if you look at the attachment on page 4 of the staffing allocation plan, it did read above 500 weighted FTE, we'd have 1. Above 750, above 1,000, we'd have another AP, and then we also have the APC. We're taking away the APC. And the proposal for the student count, if you have below 750 students, we have two assistant principals. If we have above 750 students, we have 3. If we have above 1,250 students, we have 4 APs. Currently, the numbers will allow us to have 2 APs at the high school and 3 APs at the central school.
What's the latest count at Central, then, Sam?
Excuse me?
What's the latest count at Central?
I'd have to look.
You're not, okay.
1,100, 1,110, something like that, pretty close. give or take a few.
It was 1097 last week, I think.
Excuse me?
1097?
11.
Yeah, you
I
remember.
was on vacation last week.
That's
so
right. I
had
got you right
check
before
books.
vacation.
And then the last thing, we believe in order for us to fulfill in the schools to meet the needs of everything that they're required to do. If you remember back when we had the fiscal cliff back in 2011, the board voted to state that any APs hired after 2011 be placed on an 11-month contract. For the schools, it's not working because they're constantly having to come back and ask for additional hours, additional time. So we are requesting that you place those APs back on 12-month contract.
There is also the issue with administrative changes. All the assistant principals at Central are all 11-month contracts now.
We need to have a workshop on this and have a discussion on it, just like we had that, Madam Chair. Just like we've always had discussions about this. We need to have a workshop and another discussion concerning those items, 11 and 12-month people.
And if you could, at the workshop, if you could have included, Madam Chairman, the costs, statistical costs per school that we're looking at. I mean,
It's one school, it's just Central. They're all three at Central.
so
All three APs are, 11-month APs are at Central.
the APs at the high school are 12 months,
There's only one.
but are they 12 months?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to move this to the
Well,
workshop
in that
agenda?
workshop, Madam Chair, we need to address the APs at the high school and the central school. Because I never knew that those APs were 12 months at the high school.
How did they get, I thought all the
Me either.
APs in the district were on the
And
same.
we did vote on that, and that can be researched.
There were some that were grandfathered in that were 12-month.
We voted on that, and that was never grandfathered in. We voted on that. We had a big discussion concerning that.
Okay, well, I guess we'll workshop this for our July 1st, is it? Second.
No, ma'am. I won't be here July 1st. I just be getting off my 9-day calendar trips that afternoon.
Madam,
Oh, it's on
Madam Chair,
Sunday.
if y'all want, you can
Okay.
approve everything.
Yeah, you're okay. It's July 1st.
But the next,
I'll be getting back to the calendar.
the next workshop we have scheduled is July the 2nd.
You'll be here, Vic.
Okay, I'll be there then.
So do you want to move that workshop to July the 9th? We'll be
Well,
coming the
we
9th
need
for
a
the trim budget.
Madam
meeting.
Chair, board member talking, we need a special workshop just for that. That workshop doesn't need to be included with all the other workshops and stuff, because the workshop is what we have for agenda items anyway. And this is a special item of interest, and we need to have a separate workshop concerning that only. Cause and effect and all that good stuff.
Well, we could have a special workshop before the workshop meeting. We could have this one at 5 and then our regular workshop, or whatever their pleasure is.
That'd be fine with me.
So what date are you saying, Ms.
second.
Williams?
July
The
2nd.
I mean, that date's fine with me. I mean, if it goes
Yes,
further,
ma'am.
if it goes longer, it just would go longer
That's exactly.
Can you make it at 5 o'clock?
July 2nd.
at 5 p.m.
5 o'clock.
At 5 for this special workshop, and then we'll have the regular workshop at 6.
All right.
Ms. Williamson, could we approve the
Yes, we can.
allocation
Is there a
plan
motion
without
to
the
approve
APs?
everything that's under this item except the 12-month
Okay.
issue for assistant principals?
Yes, ma'am.
Unless there are any other questions or,
Madam Chair, I would like to pull from Mrs. Starnaker's presentation, a recommendation, pull the 12 with the principals, all assistant principals.
so you're making a motion to approve everything except
Yes,
the
ma'am.
assistant principal thing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hagan, Ms. Becky, and seconded by Mr. Alford to approve all the items under that item except the 12-month assistant principal issue.
I said all. I said all the assistant principals. That was my motion.
Yeah, the assistant principals, the workshop that we're going to have on
It's in
assistant
high
principal.
school and central.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
everybody.
all.
The assistant principal workshop. Next, okay, I'm sorry. All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you. Chairman, I ask a question.
Sure.
Did I understand Mr. Stallmaker to say, that you're removing the AP from curriculum?
Yes.
So who's responsible for curriculum?
We have a curriculum director.
Curriculum director.
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
We have a curriculum director.
The district curriculum director.
District,
So the district curriculum.
the district administrators.
So let me just ask this and address this. Now, she's out there at Central School where the most need is, and she's a district curriculum person. Now we add more work to her. Somebody overworked and underpaid, stress, can't do a job, can't do well when you're overworked. Not that, I'm speaking for Mrs. Hill. I'm speaking from a board member point of view and a working person point of view. She has enough, as Vieta Hagen say, on her plate working with the Central School. Her office is located out there at the Central School. Everything comes to her at the Central School, and then we're going to give her that curriculum stuff too. And I know, see, she's over that. She's the curriculum coordinator district. And she can approve and all that, but to pile that much work back on her, I think not.
Do you want to put this in that workshop also?
Yes, ma'am.
I've already made administrative changes, and there will be, the duties will be divided up.
Okay.
Well, that's not what we're being told.
So we don't approve or we don't vote on administrative changes, do we?
Not
And
their
that wasn't an
duties.
administrative change. That was, we do. When we withdraw a position that we have approved, yes, that is not an administrative change. That is a position that we have approved, and that is what the board, that is in the board duties and responsibilities, not the superintendent, nor the director of whatever he does. My mind here.
Human resource.
Human resources. I'm not being funny or anything. I just couldn't get the word out at the time. But that is a position that this board approves to do with. That's why it was brought before us. And we get to say so. And that Central School is a mess out there.
And I'd like to ask, Mrs. Hill has been doing curriculum for this past year. And I think probably a very good job of it, I'm sure too. And could we ask Mrs. Hill if she's able to continue with that position? And that's a position she's had for the past year.
She's had the, we're doing away with that position. She is over the whole county.
Yeah.
But she was not doing curriculum at the Central School. And why would we ask Ms. Hills that? Why would we ask her that? We don't want to put nobody on the spot with anything. Ms. Hills has a supervisor. She answers to the superintendent, not us.
Okay, all right.
Apparently, you had a position designated assistant principal of curriculum design. Whether or not that position continues to have that designation is up to the board. So I think what's happening is you're taking away that position, but then you're saying you're going to have, 3 assistant principals total at Central? And so none of those would have that designation. I mean, I think that's what the board is voting on.
So last year, that was, Ms.
When-
Moore was assistant principal of curriculum.
And when she went to lead AP, we no longer had that. So we're doing away with the,
So we did not know that.
The
We did not
curriculum.
know, as a board member, I did not know that she was no longer doing that. We want our schools better, not worse. I do.
Do we need to discuss this at the special workshop?
Yes, ma'am.
The job description for,
Not job description, taking away the job.
Well,
See, we can only vote on whether we take
Ms.
away
Hill
that
will be
job.
focusing more on our K-8 curriculum,
Okay.
and Ms. Ginn will focus on our high school curriculum.
so
So the
you're-
duties will be split.
So you're saying Ms. Ginn is the curriculum for 9
high
through
school.
12, and Ms. Hill would be from K through 8.
Correct.
So Ms. Hill wouldn't be doing, because I mean, I personally, not that she couldn't do it, but that would be hard for somebody to do in two different schools like that.
No,
And
I think it'd be tough too.
I mean,
I'm just saying, I know.
I'm not saying she couldn't do it, but I'm saying that it would be something that would put a lot of undue burden on her and stress on her that shouldn't be put there.
Well, I just know she's very capable,
We have too many issues come up at the central school. We just had an issue come up at the central school, and it seems like she's an all-around person for everything.
So what?
You gotta be fair and honest with all this stuff. You can't overload people. And whether it's in their job description or not, and they are doing these things because they see the need to do the things, then we don't put it in their job descriptions to overburden and overstress anybody.
Madam Chair, what y'all just voted on was everything but the 11-month on the assistant principals. Now that included B, which is removal of the assistant
I'm gonna withdraw my
principal
motion.
for curriculum design. I think the way you need to handle it is you've had a motion, you've had a vote, so if someone wants to change that, you make another motion to
Yes,
change it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to withdraw my motion so that we can get this under discussion at the workshop.
Okay, is there a second?
I think the way I phrase that is I'm making a motion to reconsider and to take away your approval to remove the assistant principal.
Okay,
All right.
that's the motion.
That's the motion by Ms. Hagan. Is there a second?
See how they feel about you, honey?
Again, can we have discussion on this? I hear what Ms. Hagan is saying. I think that more, and I hear what Dr. Pickles is saying, but I just think more, having some word finding problems, I think that more explanation should be given where it's clear that Ms. Hill's not being stuck doing the whole district.
She is no longer now having to do all of K-12. She'll do now more of a narrowed focus. She'll be focusing on streamlining our 3 K-5 schools and the K-8, and those are our feeder schools into our central school.
I personally don't
They
have a
will
problem
all
with
be
it, but I would
one
like to
school.
see a written explanation of what you just said, because that does make sense. But initially, when we were just told that Ms. Hill's over it, you get the impression that she's over the whole
Well,
district.
that's what, that was kind of
She
the
is over the
impression
whole
I
district.
got.
She's curriculum coordinator.
Right.
She's district curriculum coordinator.
Right.
That's what I
But
stated
and
earlier.
each school has their own curriculum person. That's not thrown on the district coordinator. She's supposed to be overseeing these people, making sure the work is being done and helping where she can, not doing the job.
Right. I mean, it's not going to hurt to have a discussion of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to hurt to discuss it, and so it can be clear with everybody, so we have a good feeling about it.
So you want to pull this? Are you seconding the motion to pull this to the workshop?
Yes, I make the second.
So a motion is made by Ms. Hagan, seconded by Mr. Alford to also move this to the special workshop to have clarification discussion. All those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does that include the dean?
No, sir.
No.
Just the
Th- this-
Can hire the dean?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Staffing table changes, Mr. Stallnaker?
Attached in your packet of staff and table changes for this. Excuse me. Hang on, I got ahead of myself.
There are none.
Yeah, we're adding 3. We got the MTSS dean. Also by statute, we're having to add a computer science program at the school. And if you remember correctly, during our workshop, we talked about on a restart the Succeed Academy. So we'd like to add those 2 positions in addition to the Dean of Discipline at the Central School. If provided you approve those, when we come back in July, I'll have an updated staffing table for you to approve as well.
So we're adding 3 more changes to the staffing table.
Correct.
And one is computer science position?
The dean that you just approved,
Yes.
the computer science required by statute, and then the additional person for the Succeed Academy for those students who are in need of extra help.
And for the Succeed, clarify my memory, is that for academic intervention or behavioral?
All of the above.
Are there any questions or discussion? Is there a motion to approve the staffing table changes?
I make the motion to approve the staffing table changes.
Second.
All right. Motion made by Mr. Alford, seconded by Ms. Hagan to approve the staffing table changes. All those in favor? 5-0, Ms. Becky. Okay, personnel changes, Mr. Stalnaker.
In your package are the personnel changes for this month.
To review the changes.
Absolutely. Christina Knight, teacher at the high school. Katie Roberts, Catherine Roberts, teacher at Central School. Excuse me. Christina Knight, teacher at Central School. Catherine Roberts is at Pinetta. Cynthia Lamar is a rehire going to Greenville. Wanda Wilson is a new hire going to Central School. Barbara Thomas is a new hire / transfer from the high school to Central School to be the MTSS Dean. Ms. Valencia Barnes, assistant principal at the high school, non-recommendation. Mr. William Hightower, teacher on special assignment, Madison County High School. Mr. Charles Brown, head custodian at the high school. May Collins, bus driver district. Laura Mobley, bus monitor district. Transfers, Emily Shadrick from Central School to Pinetta. Gwen Brinson, you previously approved her to transfer from Central School to Pinetta. She has changed her mind and rather stay at Central School, so transfer her back to Central. Samantha Turner transferring from, it should be Pinetta to Lee, and Amanda Coach being transferred from Central School to Lee. Employee resignations, Tammy Leslie from the high school, Megan Hackle from Central, Arthur Jefferson from the high school, Sarah Evans from Lee, Amy Fletcher from Lee, Jason Armstrong from Central, Letitia and Justin Bell from Central, Justin Bell from the high school, and Kiara Vargas from the high school. And a substitute teacher we're adding there is Stephanie West.
One question, Madam Superintendent. Mr. Hightower, he's being transferred to the high school on special assignment. What will he be doing?
He will be kind of shadowing and taking
we pay people
on
to shadow?
some administrative duties.
Shadow?
And the pay is teacher pay.
He's teacher pay. 10 months teacher pay.
Experience.
Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns about the personnel changes?
Madam Chair.
Sure.
At the board workshop, I addressed the need for representation or diversity, and from that report, it seems like we're decreasing in representation.
Actually,
Well, I had asked for a meeting with the superintendent, so face-to-face meeting with the superintendent while we were in Tampa. We will be having that. Those there are concerns from the community and whatever. And Ms. Hubbard, you spoke out a little too soon. From what the community.
Actually, Ms. Hubbard, I am increasing diversity. So I disagree with you.
Proactive rather than reactive.
I suggest you look over.
Representation and diversity. I'm not thinking of filling a quota just to say we have numbers, but I'm also addressing the need for quality and competent representation so that that person is in a position to adequately represent all of our students and advocate for those students. If you're learning a job, if you're being transferred from your area of competence
personally want quality people. I don't care what they look like. I want quality people.
Well, you should
And
be
that's what I,
saying something
that's
about
what I,
Mr. Hightower then.
that's what I think that we should be looking for, quality people.
Because the superintendent just gave his job description as shadow. He's gonna shadow somebody.
He's shadowing in a position.
So, you know, we paying to shadow position now, not to, be an expert in these positions. So that's one you should be concerned about, Ms. Gibson.
Well,
I'm concerned about all employees. Thank you.
That's one.
he, in defense to the employee, he does have ed leadership. So he has the principal
So
certification.
he has the qualifications.
I mean, I don't know the word choice. I mean, I would assume he's going to be an AP. Is that what he's?
That's not, she said on teacher's
He's
salary.
a teacher on special assignment, learning more administrative roles. Therefore, he is shadowing administrators, taking on administrative duties.
So my question is, are we going to fill the assistant principal position vacated by Ms. Barnes?
Not at this time, no.
Because, let me clarify this in my mind. She was the assistant principal of curriculum, right?
Yes,
And so Ms. Ginn will be taking on
yes.
that role.
So that has been wrote in her job description.
She's been added those duties.
Are there any other discussion or questions? Is there a motion to approve this?
I make the motion to approve the administrative changes.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Alford, seconded by Ms. Gibson. All those in favor?
And I think you meant the personnel changes, right?
Yes.
Well, there is an oppose.
And all those opposed? Okay, 3-2, Ms. Becky.
And I just want to clarify, I think you said administrative changes and it's personnel.
No, it's personnel.
The whole list.
Personnel changes.
Okay, monthly financial reports, Mr. Copeland.
Each of you should have the May year-to-date financial report. I'll summarize quickly and answer any questions or find answers if you have them.
I don't have any.
Gotcha. I'm going to shift through it quickly then. Page 1, revenues and expenses for the 11 months to date, May 31st, that's 91.67% of the year. Our revenues are right in line as a total, as are our expenses. And we're working right now on our fiscal year end June 18th projections, and we're going to have some final budget amendments as we pull together the June numbers. Our payroll that was initially budgeted back at the beginning of the fiscal year is right in line, but we weren't able to push as much of that through the grant side as the general fund side, so we're going to have to pull some of that back in on the general fund. But we're scrubbing the grants right now for any expenditure reclassifications that meet the criteria that we can replace general funds with, and we're doing the same thing with our categorical accounts. Page 2 is just a summary by object, and page 3 you'll see the fund balance position for our general fund at May 31st, 4.86%, which is, it's been hanging in there the last few months. And it's really going to be, how we can reclassify some things and make sure our categorical restricted funds are not high at the end of the fiscal year. So, but as of May 31st, that's the 11-month numbers.
Let me ask a question.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Copeland, I'd like to thank you for all that you do. I know you put a lot of time into your work, and I appreciate it.
Well, it's not me only, it's the 3 folks I have working
Well,
with me
you
also.
and your staff. You and your staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves?
I just had one question. On the 4.86%, is that the $1.9 million figure divided by the $21 million figure? Because that works out to about 9%.
No, it's the 314,446 plus the 715,214.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
the others are all restricted. And I could show you the total fund balance and the restricted,
No,
but I just carve out the
I see.
restricted.
I wasn't reading close enough. I'm sorry.
Okay. Are there any other questions or of Mr. Copeland on the monthly financial reports?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland.
Okay. Superintendent Adams?
I was, through the Title I grant, there was an expenditure for Kagan development, training, supplies and everything, so it was already prior approved by the board, and so we've gone ahead and purchased that, and it was over $19,000, but I have to advise you now that the purchase is actually coming through. So based off our board policy. So that's the supplies for our Kagan that were done, so that purchase order went through. And then we had training last week. You had your training, I had mine. Mine was all about safety and mental health, and then the commissioner came. And scores were released about 3 p.m. Actually, they were released about 2:40 p.m. and we've diligently been working unofficially calculating our grades. DOE did call me Friday afternoon, and it looks like we made the C. So Ms. Williamson, we do not have to go appear before the state board, but they will come over tomorrow morning and scrub our numbers. They went ahead and did some rough numbering. So I have reached out to Mr. Reeves because we have to send our letter to MGT advising them that thank you but no thank you, we will not be participating in this $600,000 contract. However, we revert back to our existing contract for a second year, because if you'll recall, we have to participate as a partner for the 2 years in a row.
For how many years again?
1 more year.
1 more year.
So we will have the instructional focusing on our K2 and focusing on instruction.
Did they give you an estimation of any of the other schools?
We've kind of run some of our numbers, and so based on kind of the projections, we think Greenville will be an A. Miss Barbara had a high B, but we sat down and looked at the numbers again. She hadn't counted some children in, so I said, well, go back and find this score, go back and find this score. So we think that one will be an A.
Okay.
And Greenville, Lee will be an A. And then Pinetta, we think, is a B. And the high school, they were still running and working on their numbers.
Thank you.
And then the 2 charter schools, I haven't heard from them. So Miss Jana asked if I would send her the spreadsheet that I used. So, but Mr. Trumbley will be over in the morning for us to calculate our grades. As long as we make 41, I'm fine. That 41 was our cutoff that we had to make.
You'll send us an email as soon as he leaves?
As soon as he leaves. I'm trying to have it as prepared as much as possible for him, just so hopefully he's just having a review. So I dumped everything into the sheet he gave me. So I think we're off on the gains. So he said, use this. So as soon as I know tomorrow, it'll all still be unofficial till they officially release them.
Good for Central, and hoorah for Lee and
It's good
Greenville.
for all of them.
And Pinetta did well too. Attorney Adams,
No, ma'am, not unless you have questions of me.
any questions for Mr. Reeves? Okay, Board Member Adams, Mr. Alford.
Again, I want to congratulate the schools for their gains. And I also was in Tampa at our state meeting, and as the scores were coming out, I was writing them down, comparing this year's scores with last year's per grade level. And again, I'm very thankful of the gains, but we have a long ways to go. If you look at proficiency and look at what's required to get a standard diploma, And at some of our grade levels, we're looking at 29% that were proficient, 20%, 18. That's a long ways from everybody graduating. And I think as a board, that needs to be our focus, and it needs to be laser focus of why these grade levels are not moving forward. I'm glad that the new principal from Central is here tonight, because just in looking at the longitudinal data, there are certain grade levels at Central that are poor, and it's poor year after year. And as a board, we keep bringing people back and giving them a step, and we're having 18%, 20% that are proficient. That is low. That is low. Although we may be a C, that is 80% of the students, if they were to graduate tomorrow, would not get a standard diploma. So that parents need to be made aware that you need to do all you can to help their student progress. Off on that, but again, the scores were really good, and in looking at the reading scores were very much tied to the science scores. I challenge anybody to look at it. Whatever the reading score was for that grade level, the science score was in a few points. So if you can read, you can do a lot. And that's, I feel, should be really our focus of improving that. With that being said, I question back at one of the previous meetings, and now that the principal's here, maybe she can help to ask that all the classes be educated by the Journeys representative of how to use the program, especially your grade levels, which are struggling. So that would be the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade that historically the scores are low. Ask, has that date been set? Also, back when I asked Dr. Pickles about going to, since these scores are in, I'm curious as a board member, not knowing any student's name, what teachers did percent-wise 3 and above. Are we entitled to that information, Mr. Reeves?
And I'm not sure I follow the question 100%.
For the students in their class, not knowing the students' names, what students scored, but like teacher X in 4th grade, what was her percent of students that were
3 to 5, or you just want the 3?
3 or above. I mean,
so 3 to 5.
3, yeah. Just to give an idea, if you have someone that has 10% of their students passing, then my next question is, what type of corrective action plan have we done? Have we done one? Because as a board member, each year we keep renewing people on annual contracts and giving them a step, and we have scores in front of us that, and not saying that all the 4th or 5th grade teachers are this way, but obviously if you only have 18% of 5th graders score 3 or above, that's a lot of people who have low scores.
To answer your first question, the school board can certainly get the data. There's no privacy issue. If it's teacher, Jane Smith, and her class has 20 kids, and you say, okay, I just want student 1, student 2, student 3.
I do not want the student's name.
Right.
I just want to know as a board member.
There's no reason the school board can't have that information.
As a board member, again, we've approved everybody back. And based upon some of these scores, it gives me heartburn knowing that this isn't the first year that if you look back at your data, the last 3 years, this is consistently, or 4 years, it's consistently been this grade level. Yeah, we've had turnover, but again, at some point as a board, we have to say enough is enough with this just a perpetual cycle of not doing well. And again, I do think the kids can do well. I do think that we need to become very micromanaging of what they're doing, because again, some 4th grade classes, 5th grade classes in the district are doing well, very well. And again, back to, I just ask that the teachers who are doing well, if everyone could get together and say what they're doing, type it out where everybody in the district can see what's being done. I'm truly surprised that people have not been calling Greenville and Creative Arts, their 3rd grade, to say across the state, what are you doing? What are you doing to have these scores? I know they did last year. My sister's a principal in South Florida. She called Greenville asking them, what are you doing to have scores like this? And again, I don't know why we're not collaborating with the other grade levels in the district telling everybody what they're doing. Yes.
We did have the Greenville teachers come over and make presentations to other teachers in the district.
And again, that is great. Could they please put it in writing? And could everybody come up with some type, and this is your department, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I just think that if people have already figured out what works, then why are other people trying to figure out how to do it? Why not everybody be doing the same thing? Does that?
You get different teachers. I agree with you, Bart. I wonder if some of it's the turnover at Central. And I like the idea of the Journeys representative coming, because if you're a new teacher, you need to be trained in the program. Getting back to Greenville, it's a very an orderly school, very well-disciplined school. I've been there many times for many functions, in the classes, blah, blah, blah. I can see what's going on. You've got long-time teachers there that probably understand the material. Central has a continual turnover, and when you have new teachers, they don't know what to do.
But again,
and some of them don't stay long enough to figure out what to do either.
Again, if you have like a cookbook that every day you have to do this, there's no excuses. You have to do this every day. I guarantee you the one thing, if you go to the teachers at Greenville, Creative Arts, Lee, Pinetta, and at Central, there's good teachers at Central doing good things.
Oh, yes.
If you go to those classes that are making the gains, those teachers do the same thing consistently day in and day out.
And they've got a well-organized class, though.
Right.
A very well-organized.
But again, I just ask that we put it in writing where everybody in the district is doing the same thing. Because it's not right to be at Central and you transfer to an outlying school and the same things are not happening at the same grade level.
Now, let me ask Mrs. Hill something. Do the Journeys, for instance, do the representatives come every year and give a little, or can they come, or are they willing to come? Do we have to pay for it, or how do you?
We have to pay for it.
Okay.
But
Once we're out of the, usually when you start the adoption, you get it for free.
You get it for free.
Then after that,
You have to pay. Okay.
Well, could we please see if we have the money to do that? Because I think that is money well spent.
I do too.
But because again, I think that there's a big disconnect in what's being done with Fidelity. That was my other, and I had one more. This is the last one. I'm not gonna let this lie. I'll beat this till it's clean. But the schools are hopefully going to be clean by the time school starts. And again, Dr. Pickles, if you could come up with a time for us to all tour it, maybe 2 weeks before school, so if it's not clean.
Actually, I was looking at the middle of July.
To give people
That gives
ample
them 2
time.
weeks.
Do we have, do we need to advertise that as a meeting if we all go?
Yes.
So that gives them just about, what?
Gives them a couple weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about it and all of that, then yes, you do need to advertise.
I want to advertise.
But what I might suggest though is if you're you could go ahead and have your school board meeting there, and then take trips to, or walk-arounds where you can look at everything. The problem is when you're talking about like handicap accessible and all that, for someone like that, it'd be very difficult to follow a group as a group is talking.
So
it'd probably be better not to be talking on the little loops as you're looking at it, but then come back to a central place, have your school board meeting, and discuss what you just saw.
Okay.
So we're talking about taking an official trip to tour the school just to see if it's clean. That's what
I would like that.
A walkthrough, Reggie.
I would like that. This, in the years past, the board did do this several years ago. Because the bottom line about it, I've been several times at Central and it's been dirty. And I want the other board members to tell me if they think it's dirty or it's just me being overcritical. But because, again, I don't know how the others feel, and we don't have to do it, but again, then I just feel that if we can't have the school clean, then that's where true success starts in the turnaround of the school of it being clean. And it's not that way now, with all due respect.
Mrs. Stoneacre, have we gotten the extra janitors hired for some of that stuff?
Based off the staffing allocation plan, we're in accordance with what the school calls for. If the board wants to modify the staffing allocation plan, then yes, we can
you remember we discussed that, in one of these meetings, we discussed about having extra maintenance people because the schools were not clean enough because we didn't have enough people.
Correct.
And, we talked about, I thought that it had been motioned, well, that you would hire extra people.
We have to change the staffing allocation plan before we can do that. And it's based off of square footage, numbers of teachers, and numbers of students.
And I understand that, so, we are performing on that level now with,
We are overstaffed. I've done all the numbers. I have looked at the square footage, the population, the teachers, everything you can look at. We are actually overstaffed at Central.
What we need to look back on is, in being as fair as we can about this, I will say this for Dr. Miles. When he was there, the school was clean. The school has not increased or decreased in the number of custodians, if I'm not mistaken. So if it can be clean during his time, I would be interesting to see if we've decreased the number of custodians that were there since he was there.
Well, I can tell you the number of custodians that's there is less than what was there when I was principal.
But not when you were principal, when he was principal. When he was principal, because when he was principal, the school was spotless. And the question that keeps coming to my mind, if it could be done with that same number of custodians that was on the staffing table then why can't it be now? And again, that's the only thing I question about in looking at the staffing table. If the numbers have not changed, then we need to have a conversation about why is it not being clean. If the numbers are the same, that they were the same when Dr. Miles was there, and they're the same as they are now, then why can it not be kept clean now, and it could be then with the same number of employees?
And don't we owe it to our children?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't they be attending a school that's clean? And
yes.
If I'm a parent,
that clean environment, but the school is kind of old now. And then it takes just a little bit more work, and that's all that I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Of course,
I know.
we need that cleanliness.
I mean, old does not mean decrepit.
No, ma'am.
I mean, I went to a school 60 years ago. It looks beautiful. You don't have, old doesn't mean it's going to go to pot. It doesn't have to.
That's exactly, and I agree with you.
I know.
But when the carpet is a little bit worn thin, it takes a lot longer to clean that carpet. And that's all that I'm saying.
Yeah.
Of course, I want that school clean, and all the other schools, what I call it curbside service.
Right.
First impressions.
And
when you walk in, and I've spoken about this several times about first impressions. When you get there, and the condition of the schools and whatever, and I agree with everybody about the cleanliness of it. But if it's just all dirty, as Mr. Alford is saying, you get this feeling, this irritable feeling.
It sets the tone.
But I was just, exactly, it sets the tone. But all I was saying is, as things get a little bit more older, whatever, it takes a lot more work to do it, and it can be kept clean.
It can be kept clean.
I agree with you, Ms. Hagan, and I think what some of it is now is that it going, ever since he's left, it's gone that period without being clean,
That's
and now you're in a
exactly.
state of it being
Catch up.
dirty. Right, and it's hard to do, but what I'm talking about being clean is something that easily could is your walkways on the outside of the schools. The doors need to be painted. The doors need to be washed down and going into the rooms because you can see the darkness on them. The cobwebs in the hall. The bathrooms are not clean. Those are the things I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm not referring to the carpet. That's a whole nother issue. But again, it can be, improvements can be made where children can go there and parents can be proud that their child is in a clean.
You're saying they can at least do their work.
Right, right.
And I agree that.
They rented one of the commercial buffers that you use a pressure washer, and they're working on them every day as we speak.
Good. Good. It needs to be.
So do you want to talk about a date or get with, when do we come up with the date to go do the walkthrough and then have the board meeting at the school to discuss it?
Well, the 16th is a
On
board
the
meeting.
16th.
On the 16th, so you want to move our,
The idea is to go and drive to each school. We not talk about it till we come back here, but we go to the schools,
okay.
walk through, you'll have a checklist.
So what time do you want to schedule the walkthrough on the 16th?
It's going to take a while to go to each
Because
school.
we'll have to drive, yeah.
Right.
I figured we would decide that on the 2nd.
You do all 5 schools in one day?
If the schools are clean,
I don't think so, Mr. Attorney. All 5 schools in one day? Yeah, I don't think so.
well, I mean, whatever it's the pleasure of the board, but theoretically, if something's clean, you could walk through it quickly.
Okay.
I mean, if you would like to do 2 schools, we could do the 2 bigger schools in
That's
one
exactly.
day, and the 2 outline, or the other outline ones in another day. It's fine with me, but I just feel we need to, as board members, we need to go see what the schools look like.
The 2 large ones and then the other outer lines, the 3.
So if Dr. Pickles can come up with that and she can let us know, that would be great. I have no other items.
Well, my concerns have been addressed, payroll,
Okay,
job hiring, for school scores, and now, the other thing that we do need to address is diversity. And, Madam Superintendent, I need to have a face-to-face meeting with you when you can give me an appointment, please.
okay. All right, Mr. Hagan's finished, Mr. Daniels?
Yes, ma'am.
Mine come in the form of commending the superintendent and the staff and district, school teachers, everybody who played a role of Central making gains. I understand that we can, I mean, it's easy to pick apart a lot of the, you know, the where we could be or whatever, but looking back over the years, Central has consistently been a D. And regardless of how we got there, we got there. And that's the bottom line. And, you know, whether we want to give her credit or not, you know, a lot of changes were made. A lot of, you know, we went through a whole lot. And I just wanted to commend everybody, including the public, because a lot of volunteers spent countless hours. The meals we went around with the teachers and the staff we had, the community cooking for them, all of that played a part in that seat. So I wanted to commend everybody who played a role, even the board and the district staff, the community. We have a tentative C at Central. I don't think that has sunk in. And so I wanted to really commend everybody and just pray to see stands. So, and also I wanted to commend all of the school, the softball girls and the baseball boys who made all state and all Big Bend. I won't name them right off. And just I'm thankful for everybody who's doing a wonderful job around the district.
Ditto to that. I appreciate everyone that's working, and they are working hard. I know that. Being a teacher in this day and age is a tough job, but they have definitely worked hard this year. I had the privilege of attending the Florida School Board Association conference last week. I saw some very interesting speakers. Then we had some breakout sessions. One of them was in lieu of options in lieu of suspension, which they had a little idea, a de-escalation ticket where the child would go straight to the dean's office for some counseling with a counselor or principal. Parents are always contacted. But of course, they said sometimes you have to be suspended. But I'm in favor, again, of reviewing the Journeys program. Like I said, it's Central's had a lot of turnover, and some of them stay 6 months, a year, and they do need to, and not only the new teachers, but any teacher needs a review. So I think I have said my piece.
Okay, I do want to thank all of the fellow board members for attending the School Board Association. It's not easy to always be out of town so much. And I, too, am very much in favor of the program where we try to cut back on suspensions and instead of focusing on what the child did, but why the child did it, and try to get them counseling and stuff to cut down on the suspensions and keep them in school.
Ms. Williamson, in piggybacking off of that, Dr. Pickles, the session was Clay County's Assistant Superintendent Mike McCauley, who was in this district years ago as a school psychologist. But if we could maybe get more information of what they're doing to do that, it was the most interesting talk I went to that day at I mean, I know he would be happy to help us all he could, but I think that's something that we should really look at, and it was very, very interesting.
Yes, it was.
That's all. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned.